Hello and welcome to your weekly stop for all things science and tech, innovation and entrepreneurship, which is India Ideas. I'm Gautam Roy. Today we're turning our gaze towards a segment of our startup ecosystem which holds a lot of promise in terms of the potential it has to solve the nation and the world's current and future problems. A sector which requires a lot of R&D, inventiveness and creation of intellectual property. Yes, we're talking about deep tech today as our showcase this week. Well, deep tech is a sector among Indian startups which is getting much needed attention these days. From government to investors, it has started getting a kind of support it needs to realize its full potential. Now, India has about 3,000 plus deep tech startups. Of these, 210 were launched in 2021 alone. 12% of the country's overall tech startups are in the deep tech space. 53% of the cumulative growth of deep tech startups in the country has taken place during the last 10 years. These startups also raised $2.7 billion in funding in 2021. But there are also reports which say that less than 20% of India's deep tech startups receive any funding, and only 11% of India's tech funding goes to deep tech startups. Now, why is this the case and how can it be changed as well? Let's find that out today. To talk about it with us, we have Chirag Gupta, Managing Partner, Atex Ventures, which is a deep tech focused venture capital firm based in UAE's Dubai, investing in startups with a lot of potential to, of course, solve fundamental problems that the world faces. We also have with us Kiran Mysore, Principal UTEC Japan, which is based in Tokyo and works with the academia in Japan and abroad to fund technology ventures that create new industries to solve global issues of humankind by bringing together capital, talent and knowledge. And we also have Yuichiro Sano, India Investment Team Leader, Beyond Next Ventures, which is another Tokyo-based VC firm which invests in early-stage deep tech Indian startups. Welcome to you all. Let's start with you, Chirag. The conventional VC approach towards deep tech has for long been one of skepticism about return on capital due to longer gestation period, lack of understanding of the tech premise itself, and transformative, how transformative it could be. But then why has Atex Ventures chosen to be unconventional? Even your name is unconventional because most VCs talk about at least 10x returns.
So first of all, thank you for having us on your show. There are two parts of the question. First part of the question is why deep tech? So there are two answers to it. One is the macro answer and one is a very India-focused answer to this. When you talk about the macro answer, now macro answer is globally, US, Europe and China, if you look at the overall funding ecosystem, 25% of the funding ecosystem now goes into the deep tech. And that's how it has evolved from approximately 10 to 12% to about 25% where it stands now. Mm-hmm. India is catching up on that right now. India used to be somewhere around 7 to 8%. Now it has moved up to 10%. We believe it's going to catch up with that 20-25% with the global benchmark very soon. So that's a very global answer to this. Now there is an India-specific conversation. Within India, originally there was the issue of the deal flow because there were not many deals available in India when it comes to the deep tech ecosystem. However, now IITs, triple ITs have done a fantastic job, which makes the life of people like us, venture capitalists, very easy by providing us the access to the deal flows, which makes making investments in the deep tech a lot more easier. So if you go to IITs, there are incubators specific for robotics, for biotech, for medtech, which traditionally finding a good deal would have already been a very big challenge. Now that hurdle has been crossed. Now that's the second part of it. Now coming to what is our conviction to this? Why? So that is how the industry was changing. But the realization for us was entering a deep tech space. Deep tech gives you a sustainable competitive advantage. which typically you do not have in other sources or other startups, which sometimes is very, very valuable. Some of the IPs that you create are sometimes very, very valuable. And from that perspective, we believe that deep tech is a space that we want to, we should be spending a lot of time, effort, and money onto.
All right.
The
Now,
Kiran, question was, why call it 8x? Why not call it 10x, 50x, or 100x?
Right.
Now, on that, the top quartile of the deep tech return that was generated in the last decade was 8x. And we be honest to ourselves. We wanted to be ambitious, but we wanted to be honest to ourselves. And that's why we called ourselves 8x.
Okay, good to know. Now, Kiran, tell us about your firm as well. How come it is investing in deep tech startups in India, when I'm sure there must be plenty of opportunities in Japan itself or in its immediate neighborhood?
Yes, namaste and konnichiwa. Thank you very much, Gautam, for doing this, especially at a time when there is a lot of negativity surrounding the startup ecosystem. Deep tech startups are going after evergreen problems which are not necessarily affected by a few percentage points here and there of interest rates, right? So we are University of Tokyo Edge Capital. We are one of Asia's largest deep tech focused firm based in Japan, investing in global companies. We invest in science and technology companies that have strong synergies with universities, but we are an independent firm. So far we managed 5 funds, cumulatively about 90 billion Japanese yen, or about $900 million worth of assets under management. And so far we've invested in over 140 companies with 19 IPOs and 20 M&As. The approach for us is to invest in Japanese companies as well as global companies having 3 things: fundamental science and technology, having strong global teams, solving global issues of humankind. So the problems that are affecting us today are not necessarily specific to one country, but it is specific to regions across, whether you are in the emerging world or developed world. And that's where India fits into the picture. So since 2018, we have been investing heavily, not just in Japan, but also in global companies in India, Southeast Asia, and UK, which I lead. In India, for example, India is at a very interesting interjection. So why India? Is that, and by the way, when we invest in deep tech companies, we often take lead positions, and anywhere we invest very early, we start investing in seed early stage, but we follow on up to around $15 million over the life cycle of the company, what we call from IP to IPO. In India, for example, offers a combination of 4 things. Very quickly, I'll summarize. India is perhaps the only emerging country which has innovation to parallel Silicon Valley, both in science and engineering-led innovation. So that's one. Second, it happens at an affordable cost structure, not just because of the cost, but also about the mentality of frugality, which is very important, especially in the current tough macroeconomic environment. Third, the local market, especially in the B2B space, is not super huge, but it is big enough that startups can start building for India, make their products robust before expanding to international markets. So in that, it has elements of China. And fourth, it is Indian startups can be global from not day zero like Israel or Singapore, but global from day one. So the combination of Silicon Valley level innovation, affordable cost structure, large B2B market has parallels to China and global, and the complementarity with Japan. Japan is old, India is young, Japan is good in hardware, India is good in software. The combination of all these things makes India very attractive for us.
Great. Yuichiro, konnichiwa to you as well. Now, the same goes for you too, just like Kiran, probably, or even that is not a distinction, that apart from investing in deep tech startups, you also look to bet on early stage ones in India. Why is that the case?
Yes, konbanwa. Thank you for having me. Beyond Next Ventures is a Japanese venture capital fund established in 2014. We have been managing 2 funds totaling $200 million and invested in over 70 deep tech startups. We invest in areas across life science, healthcare, climate tech, agri-tech, electronics, AI, and so on. And our investment in India started in 2019. And I think the Indian startup ecosystem has been led by fintech, consumer tech, and IT. But I believe that deep tech is definitely on the rise. And in Japan, we have been investing and supporting the growth of early stage deep tech companies. And in addition to investment, we also operate an acceleration program specializing in the creation of university-launched ventures, and also in order to solve the shortage of management personnel, which sometimes is one of the biggest challenges for the deep tech companies. We provide strong support for the recruitment of management personnel for our portfolio companies. So now we'd like to apply the experience we have gained in Japan to India, where I see a huge potential.
Wonderful. Now, Chirag, considering the funding winter which descended in late 2021 and is still to turn to spring in the spring of 2023, how has this period been for Indian deep tech startups? They did raise $2.7 billion in 2021, which was a watershed year for funding as far as Indian startups go in general, with a record number of them turning into unicorns. How did the deep tech sector do?
So, I think deep tech sector had the capability to raise a lot more fund last year, and it was definitely impacted by the funding winter that we're talking about. Having said that, there are two trends which are quite visible right now. First is that a bunch of venture capital firms and private equity firms, they were not sure about deep tech, and the ones who were not sure have walked back. They have moved back to the sectors they were more comfortable with, and they are not doing deep tech anymore. So, which makes the life of the entire fundraising a little bit more challenging from that perspective. The second thing that happened is that the academicians have started playing an important role now in the entire deep tech ecosystem. 2022, I saw it as a pivotal year, and this year also, that the number of professors and students now at the IITs and triple IITs and other engineering colleges that are interested into the deep tech ecosystem or want to launch a deep tech startup has increased massively, which was quite unprecedented compared to the previous years. So yes, the funding winter has impacted, but yes, we also see there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's some amazing work happening. I don't think the great work has stopped. The funding has been a little bit of challenge.
All right. Okay, Kiran, now what are UTEC's India investments so far, and where do you see them going by the end of the decade?
Thanks for the question. So far we've invested in 5 Indian companies, about cumulatively around $35 to $40 million commitment in the last few years, more than just the number of companies. As I mentioned, we take deep bets and help the company in terms of hands-on support to achieve success. So we've invested in companies in broadly 2 types of categories. One is science-led innovations, which are predominantly fundamental technology breakthroughs in life sciences or aerospace engineering. The other one is engineering-led innovation, where there is no single technology breakthrough, but it's a syndication of many different technologies coming together, in which India is absolutely fantastic. So one of the companies is called Bugworks, which is a life science company spun out of C-Camp in Bangalore. They develop a new class of antibiotics targeted at drug-resistant infections. In fact, it became the first Indian startup to take a novel class of drug into clinical trial. Second is a company called ePlane, which is a spin-off of IIT Madras. So ePlane is currently building world's most compact eVTOL aircraft. So flying aircraft for both logistics as well as people transport. These are science-led innovations. On the other hand, we also have a few companies on the engineering-led innovation. One of the companies is called Tricog, which is a remote cardiac diagnosis company using AI. And they are currently one of the world's largest healthcare AI company. They became one of the first cardiac startups in the world to cross 10 million real-world patients, not just in India, but also in Southeast Asia and Africa. It's a combination of interventional cardiology, embedded systems, and machine learning, which actually happens to be my background. Okay. And fourth is a company called Agara, which is an AI company tackling global markets, which was acquired by Coinbase. So these are the type of companies that we invest. Some companies are building from India for the world, solving problems in Japan, in US, elsewhere. Other companies like Tricog are actually collaborating with Japanese manufacturers and engineering companies to solve issues in emerging markets. So those are the type of companies that we invest. Apart from it, very quickly, we also have partnered with a fund called Bloom Ventures and launched a program called Bloom UTEC Deep Tech Alliance to do more ecosystem activities by collaborating with research institutes in India.
Sounds great. Now, Yuichiro, what have BNB's investments been in India so far like, and how has the process of investing from abroad been so far on the regulatory front as well? Has it been smooth from the start, or have there been some hurdles too?
Well, yeah, we have not experienced any major hurdles, especially on the regulatory front. We have invested in 14 companies so far, and we hope to accelerate this more. And we also strengthen our local team in India. And since we started our investment in India 4 years ago, we really see the potential for solving social issues through deep tech. And if issues are big, solutions are going to scale, and business will grow. So for example, one of our portfolio companies, Medibody, They are one of India's largest digital healthcare platform empowered by AI, and they provide access to affordable healthcare to patients across India. So they create a huge social impact and scale its business significantly. Like this, we believe deep tech startups have a huge potential for growth if they are able to solve the deep issues.
Now, Chirag, the consciousness to back deep tech startups has been growing in the country during this decade, both in the government and in the private sector. By when do you think will we get to see the fruits of the added attention these startups have been getting? Because India still doesn't have a deep tech unicorn to make a case in point, although it now does seem to be a slightly dodgy parameter.
So I want to first make a correction. You said India doesn't have a deep tech unicorn. India does have deep tech unicorns. So we could again talk about Unifor and Gupshup, which are amazing companies that have been built out of India. One from IIT Chennai and one from IIT Bombay. And to answer the question, how long do we think it's going to take before deep tech unicorns are going to come out? We believe in the next 5 years, there will be multiple deep tech unicorns that will be coming out. The kind of work that has happened in the last 2 to 3 years, and like you were talking about in the beginning, that in the last 2 to 3 years, the amount of funding that has shot up significantly. And we do believe that in the next 5 years, there will be the impact that we can see. There will be a bunch of unicorns that will be coming out. And just to add on to that, in addition to the valuation, I also see that looking at the number of employment that it generates is also a critical factor that we personally look at. So how much employment are we generating is an important aspect, as much as the valuation that you're generating is important, as much as the revenue that you're generating is important. So holistically, I think deep tech is now starting to grow a lot faster than it used to be, and in the next 5 years, there should be an impact.
All right, wonderful. Now, Kiran, what do you make of the opportunities offered by India so far in terms of making investments in deep tech? Are they similar to how things are in Japan and other markets that UTEC looks to put money in, or are they different?
I think there are certain similarities in Indian and Japanese startups. Our fundamental belief is that especially Japanese startups as well as Indian startups are pretty good in where physical world touches the real world. Or physical world touches the digital world, and those sort of startups are very much required to solve global issues of humankind, right? Japanese startups usually come with fundamental breakthrough technology. Some of the times the expectation of the product quality expected by a Japanese large corporation is much higher, which actually makes the product robust enough so that they can expand across the board. Whereas Indian companies or Indian startups are extremely good at having a global mindset, building from global from almost day one, and in terms of interdisciplinary things, the syndication of many things, putting together, tackling global problems. I think those are the things that we have been seeing. So what we are complementarity, due to the complementarity, working together to solve, across and scale across the world, that's really good. So our perception is that the future of India deep tech is bright. The future of Japan-India collaboration is great. So that is shining through across the board. So while Chirag talked about a slightly short term, let me take a slightly longer term, which our Prime Minister Modi keeps on talking about, which is the India 2047 vision. By then, we believe that there'll be at least 5 companies in the deep tech space from India, each of them worth at least $100 billion of market cap. So 5 companies, $500 billion of market cap, and 5 billion people impacted across the world. So that's the broader long-term vision that we are taking.
Oh, that'll be something, won't it? Now, Yuichiro, what kind of a future do you see for deep tech sector in India as well in terms of their growth, funding and profitability prospects?
Yes, very positive. I see a big potential. The number of deep tech startups, the number of venture capitals investing in deep tech startups like us, and the government push will all increase more and more. And we also like to be more aggressive and work with a lot of deep tech startups. Our main focus areas are health tech, climate tech, and intersection of deep tech and digital. And we also strengthening a partnership with incubators like C-Camp, as Kiran mentioned, and also academia, including IITs. Maybe the challenge for deep tech may not necessarily be on the technology itself, but on the business side. So even excellent technology, excellent products, we must sell to the market. So that is why we are looking to work with Japanese corporates as partners. So scaling up production, quality control, go-to-market, and business development. We may be able to create a win-win relationship by partnering with Japanese companies in this space. So we, besides investing in Indian deep tech startups as a bridge or conduit between Japan and India, we'd like to help connect Indian deep tech startups and Japanese corporates and provide unique value as a Japanese venture capital fund.
Okay, great. Sounds great. And we hope that the effort that you guys are putting in, and of course, it is only being put in because, of course, you see that there will be good returns coming in later on down the line as well. More and more people come into the space of funding deep tech in India because A, it is highly needed, and B, it will be money being put in the right place for the benefit of the largest number of people, not just in this country, but all over the world. And thanks for correcting me on my research as well, Chirag. I believe there are 3 unicorns from the deep tech space in India right now, 5i, Unifor and Gupshup. And we'll try and get that right as well in our later shows as well. Thank you for joining us for the moment and being part of India Ideas. So there you have it. That was India Ideas this week. And do keep tuning in every week on Thursday at 8 p.m. to check out what are we tracking in the space where India's startups are surging ahead. Until then, keep watching DD India for all the latest.